Real estate, and I'm here at our head office, Absa Towers, located at Reuters Street. Today, I'm here to talk about our newest project, that is Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki, and it is located only 10 minutes drive from Cedar Mall. And in this project, we have proposed that we will be having a GMC Entertainment Center. This will be a replica of what we have in Kitengela, GMC Kitengela. We are also proposing a police post, so you are assured that security, once you invest here, security is good. And we are also proposing to have a playing ground. We are also going to have a community ground. So once you invest here, you don't have to worry about the security. The other things, among the things that we are doing, or the things that we have done already in Great Oasis Gardens, we have already done the marking fence, and the roads, the internal roads are already happening. We have started the malaming the road, and we are still in the process of doing the malaming of the internal roads. And we are also sinking a borehole so that we ensure that our investors in Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki, will not struggle with water. We are also going to elevate a water tower so that we have a constant supply of water in this project. And we also have a caretaker on site. The caretaker is on site and he's there 24/7. And then we also have different sizes in this project. We are having 8, we are having quarters, we are having halves, and we are also having acres. One can buy in bulk, you can buy in big chunks, and that is why we are saying in Great Oasis Gardens, Nanyuki, we are saying that bigger is better. In this project, what you can invest in, you can invest in private schools. You can also do holiday homes, whereby you can do Airbnb. You can also do holiday homes, and then you start renting, and you can also build houses and sell. You can also do apartments in this area. You can also do supermarkets. You can also build a mall, and then you start renting. There is so much that you can do in this project because it is not controlled development. We are also located along Nanyuki Rumuruti Road, and this road is being proposed to be tarmacked by the government. So coming from Nanyuki, or coming from wherever you be coming from, it will be very easy to access the project because it is touching the Nanyuki Rumuruti Road, which is going to be tarmacked by the government. My number is +254 722 355 107. Do not be left behind. Call that number. I will work with you. If you're in Kenya, give me a call. We go for the site visit. We select the project. We start the payment. If you're in diaspora, send a representative, and I will be delighted to work with you. And as we say here in Optiven, we shine because you make us shine. God bless you. Thank you.
Africa. Our economy has a bit. It never stops, always beating. Our business, the next global economic frontier. Let's talk African business.
The smell of paper lingers on that day, creeping up like wisteria, purplish gray, into my nostrils and refusing to fade. Between the shelves, I kneel and I pray. I visit the bookshop every Saturday.
Wow, there you go. Now, this anthology of poems by Nzilani Chale covers topics ranging from mental health to nostalgia and lost friendships. Often taking on a sarcastic and somewhat dark tone like you have heard, it delves into how young people process thoughts and emotions by exploring difficult situations and the various ways in which they might be navigated. Now, this particular book I'm holding is divided into 3 sections, and each section tells its own story. Section 1, Imagines, focuses on the initial poems that Nzilani, you have just seen her, wrote when she first started to explore writing poetry at the age of of 13. The poems in section 2, Ascension, were written from when Zilani was 14, and they deal with issues such as environmental cries and conversations regarding social justice, as well as navigating the challenges brought about by the pandemic in 2020. Section 3, Evolution, includes Zilani's most recent works, which deal with mental health and nostalgia surrounding childhood memories. I know most of you watching this morning are teenagers, and this is why I brought in Zilani Chale to talk about why she has such a beautiful book and quite intense for a teenager to actually come up with these wordings. I'm curious to know what goes on in her mind, in her heart, in her soul, and how does she navigate teenage life in this century. Join me, use the hashtag The Morning Drift, even as we talk about personal development, mentorship, and the life of a young person in this era. Well, it's so good to have you.
It's brilliant to be here.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Can I start with that piece?
Of course.
What was that about, and at what state were you when you wrote that particular poem that you just told us, or started us off with this morning?
So that poem is called Bright Red Saturday. And when I was writing it, I was in the midst of a lot of studying and writing as well. I was finalizing this book. And I felt as if I was just surrounded by books and literature, and I couldn't get it out of my head. And I felt so inspired to put that down on paper.
You felt you were so inspired to put that down on paper. Do you get some sort of power when you write stuff on paper?
Absolutely. My poetry specifically is a way that I express my emotions, I navigate the thoughts that I'm having. Sometimes I discover that I'm feeling something as I'm writing a poem, and I'm like, wow, you know?
You discover that you're feeling something.
Yes.
I hear a lot of people talk about teenagehood can be a bit difficult, being a teenager, and I want to hear it from you. You were young, you were 13, then you were 14, but you discovered your writing, I don't want to call it talent, but passion at the age of 13. How did you discover that? How did you find out I can actually write a poem and make it a reality?
So actually, before I started writing poetry, I used to make little books from paper, and I used to write stories with them, and I used to illustrate them and everything. But when I got to my 7th year in high school, and I really realized that I wanted to branch out into different types of writing. And my year 7 teacher, his name was Mr. Plas, he instructed me to write a poem about anything. It could be about anything. And I did, and that was when I discovered my love of poetry specifically.
What did you write about in your first poem?
It's actually in there. It was about, yes.
So maybe we're going to get into that. Let's first talk about the oddball. Guys, looking at this, I was captivated by the front page, let alone the beautiful picture of her at the back. This oddball, let's begin with why is it even called odd? You know what odd means? Like, you're the odd one out. That is odd. It's never really something good to be odd. But when you read oddball from a teenage writer, what is this oddball as the name of this book all about?
So I have always thought of myself as kind of a strange person. I've never really fit conventional molds. And at first, I was kind of self-conscious about that growing up and everything, but now I've kind of learned to reclaim it as a power. To be odd is to think in different ways, to create in different ways. And so being an oddball, so to speak, is something that I've reclaimed. And that is actually the whole concept of oddball, is that on the cover, the ball...
Maybe I'm going to let you just hold it up and explain on the cover, because, guys, is it a man, or I don't know what it is? Doesn't have a head, holds what looks like a ball or the earth in his hands, in a suit, and why is it even a man? Let's just hear your description of this cover page.
So on the front, this ball right here is actually the planet Pluto.
Can you lift it up a little bit so they can see it? Yes.
Sure. This ball right here is actually the planet Pluto, which I kind of relate to the planet Pluto in a strange way, because Pluto is an outcast, you know? It's no longer part of the solar system. After 76 years. It was outcast because it was too small, because it didn't orbit the way a regular planet orbits. And so I've always taken inspiration from Pluto as a planet, and I decided to make it the front cover. And so the man here is kind of representative of me, my soul, and holding the planet Pluto signifies that claiming of being an outcast, being an oddball.
I am very curious about your story before we get into what we can pick in as young people or pick out from your story. Can we go into your story? Calling yourself odd, and I can tell you for sure, young people are battling with fitting in, and you know that.
Certainly.
Everybody wants to have the cool friends around them. You want to have the best social media likes and followers. Everyone is trying to fit in, but you're saying, you know what, I'm odd and I'm reclaiming it, and there's power within that. What is odd about you? And how did you say this doesn't have to work as my weakness, but a strength?
Yes, so growing up, I was always the quiet kid. I was always in the corner, reading, drawing, just doing my own thing.
Did they call you a nerd?
Yes. They did. And that is also something that I've learned to reclaim and just be like, you know what, I'm a nerd, I wear glasses, I read.
Yeah.
That's okay. And so that was always the thing that people would notice first about me is, oh my God, you're so quiet, you don't talk much, you're always in the corner, come and talk to us, And that kind of made people view me in like a strange light, like, oh, she's odd and quiet and, reserved. But as time went on, I kind of learned that as an individual, I'm quiet, and that's completely okay. There's loud people, there's quiet people.
Yes.
It's not something to be ashamed of if you're quiet or if, you like to read or draw or just be on your own. Yeah.
And it's okay. And I like when you say it's okay, you don't have to be like everybody else. There's something unique about James, something unique about Jerry, something unique about everybody else. But you have to get the power and reclaim that that's who you are and that's okay. Now, looking at, family, sometimes we have children being bullied in school. Sometimes we have instances of very severe depression. And somehow parents say, I did not know that this was going on because the child wasn't speaking. Now you have some very strong support. Your mom is actually here today.
Certainly, yeah.
And somehow I see and sense a really strong relationship despite the fact that you're quiet and odd. They knew what was going on in your life. How is that? And, what would you say to young people right now as far as communication is concerned?
So my mom and I have always been kind of the same, very quiet, and we've always been homebodies, we like to say. So I would say that you just have to find that kind of bonding moment or bonding experience with your parents or with your child and learn what connects you. So if going out into nature connects you, then that's an activity that you can do together, and you can chat on the way if anything's bothering you or if something's, just on your mind, or even if it's just like friendly weekend chat, just something to bond over, because my mom and I actually have books to bond over. We've always loved reading together.
There's always something you can do together, and that's actually how to bond even with your parents.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering how many things that young people can bond with. Because the older generation of parents say we don't really understand, especially social media.
Yeah.
Before we even talk about how to bond using social media, what are your thoughts on social media? Because I want us to dig deeper into your book. There's certain poems that were very, very deep. I would love to read and analyze, but social media has been one of those things. Very distractive. We're actually bullied up there.
Yeah.
What would you say? Have you written anything about social media? Did it ever put you in a zone where you had to write a poem?
I've written things about social media's impact on mental health, because I think that's the main thing that I take away from social media, is that you really have to be conscious about how it's impacting your mental health, and the things that you follow on social media can really have an impact on how you think and your perspective of the world. Because there's so much negativity happening in the world. Of course, there's bad news. But how much of that you consume is really what impacts your mental health, and being conscious of that is so important.
You know, our age group and age gap right now,
Yeah.
as we sit here. So I am trying to get into your mind as a young person.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just go into what is it that most of your friends or teenagers, and I'm not saying you're going to speak for them, but you would actually tell my timeline would have less teenagers, right?
Yeah.
Compared to your timeline.
Yeah.
What are they probably feeding themselves at this point in time? I know there's TikTok and the challenges. What
Yeah.
else do you think might not be the right thing really to follow? What would you not follow as a Zilani?
I think the thing of body image is so prevalent in today's society. It's always there. You always see like your ideal body type, and if you're not that, it can be so crushing as a young person to see somebody who looks the way you want to look and not being able to achieve that because maybe your body is different, you know? And that's an issue that my friends and I have discussed. It's an issue that I see so often across social media, and it's heartbreaking to see.
And that's actually true. When you say body image, it has gone down to esteem, right? Like you want to post a photo and have 1,000 likes immediately.
Yeah.
Why? Because you have a really curvaceous body, especially as a girl.
Yeah.
You have this kind of eyelids or eyebrows.
Yeah.
And so it's like young people seem to be, you know, drawing validation and self-esteem from that.
Certainly, yeah.
Are there moments within your peers where, you know, you have come out with your poem and it has probably changed perceptions? What do you have your feedback from young people when they read your poems?
Yeah, definitely.
How is
Especially
it?
It's very good to see that outreach and to see that it's actually helping to talk about these issues more openly and say, there's nothing to be ashamed of if you're struggling. There's nothing to be ashamed of if you're different. And it's so important to reduce the stigma around these issues. And it's really helping, I think, too.
It is helping.
Yeah.
Can I grab a copy of this? And just,
Absolutely.
I went through this book, ladies and gentlemen, and I loved certain concepts, but I felt like once she comes here, it's easier to challenge her to discuss some of these poems, because looking at her age, 13, 14, and now she's 17, the kind of poems she's written about nostalgia and loss of friends, I'm going to come to friendships shortly,
Yes.
really captivated me. And if we can do this bit of a challenge to see how good you know your work.
Sure.
When we look at the Mind of a Slave, which is on page 5 of the Oddball, quite an interesting piece. What was going through your mind? Can I read a bit of that?
Absolutely.
And you can help us analyze.
Yes.
At what age did you write this?
I wrote this when I was in year 8, so I was 13.
This is one of the first ones. Okay.
Yes.
At 13, she writes a poem written called The Mind of a Slave. Can I start with what was going on through your mind?
Of course.
Slavery is not very good.
Yeah.
So what was going on?
So at the time, I was reading a lot of books that were regarding, you know, racism and slavery. And I was just so, you know, shaken by all of the things I was reading, because, of course, I had never gone so in depth about these issues and seen such visceral images. And so I decided to write the poem from a perspective of a slave who was like questioning why all of these things were happening to them, and just the confusion, the agony, everything.
I think it's best if you read it.
Sure.
Yeah? So that we feel your emotion to it. All right, this is The Mind of a Slave. You might read up to maybe the 4th, so we actually see what then was the spirit and emotion when she wrote this. All right, I can't wait to see if you have any expressions on your face as well. Mind of a Slave.
Why? I always ask myself why. Why are you doing this to me? Why is this happening to me? Why should I be stolen away from my country, carried away by men who despise me, solely because of the color of my skin? Why should I fall to my knees, fall before those who stamp on my culture with an iron-tipped boot, crush my beliefs in their sun-bleached hands? Why should I hang from a rope around my neck, captured and mistreated by those who judge me, solely because of the color of my skin?
All right. I want to talk about two things. Culture. Yes. Now, this is what's happening in this century, in this era, especially with your generation.
Certainly.
How well do you know your culture in Zilani?
Well, I'm definitely trying to be more in touch with it because it is something that I've faced a bit of discrimination against when I was younger. But definitely now I'm trying to learn more about it, reclaim it, because it is very important, especially to me.
All right.
Yeah.
I hardly meet young people who say, I'm, habari yako, speak their mother tongue.
Yeah.
In fact, the other time my co-host and I were trying to figure out if we are actually killing a mother tongue, and we are forgetting. The president of Kenya, William Ruto, is very proud to say, I'm a boy from the village, Sugoi, and I've risen to presidency. Do you get that most people or young people are running away from getting attached or associated with their backgrounds, cultures, trying to fuse in and get assimilated into the modernity and trying to fit in? What do you think ought to be done differently as far as that is concerned? Because you're taking a different turn, you want to be more in touch. What do you think?
It does seem like more people are viewing their culture and their background and being Kenyan and African specifically as something to be ashamed of, which I don't think that's the case at all, because there's so much beauty in being Kenyan, and there's so much beauty in our food, our clothing, our language. When you listen to all of the different languages across Kenya, you hear so much diversity and you hear so much passion. And I think that's something to be embraced. So the thing that I would say could be done differently is to embrace and to find a balance between modernity and culture.
Find a balance between modernity and culture. Now, because I know parents are watching this morning, so our teachers and policymakers, we do want to make this happen. But it's even in a workplace, it's not very easy to have an older boss deal with younger, employees. But I know you're quite, I wouldn't say, I don't know how modest you are, but I think you're quite an icon. You're iconic as far as going in to write this very deep poems are concerned. And if there was an approach you would give us today on how to actually convince or bring the young people closer into understanding that culture is something to be proud of, what and how would we do that? Or how would you tell them to rethink and reconsider holding on and learning and trying to get back the direction into heritage?
So I would say that because there are so many different parts of culture, and there are so many different cultures in Kenya. There's poetry in different languages, there's art from different people, from different tribes. There's so much that is related to culture that I think could be introduced in schools or outside of schools. Like
the music festivals?
Yeah, absolutely.
The national, drama festivals right now?
Yeah, so you could have like poetry readings where people read poems in different languages.
But young people don't think that's cool. I think you're one of the few that is saying that this is cool. Like, you guys say it's not cool. All you want to do is jump to some awesome stuff on Spotify and Apple, and no one wants to actually go in to a poetry hangout. Yeah?
Yeah.
How?
Well, I also think that there's fashion. Fashion is quite prevalent in, young people's radar.
Okay.
So that could be something that is introduced. Food is something.
You guys love food. Young people love food.
Oh, absolutely.
So hangouts need to have some good food.
Yes.
Okay.
So everybody brings like a dish that they've learned how to make from their culture. Like maybe their parents or their grandparents have taught them, and they bring it and they're like, this is what I used, this is how you make it, this is something special about, the background of it. Yeah.
And I like that you're giving us a different perspective of hangouts. It doesn't have to be drugs.
Yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't have to be, everything negative. It could be food, could be fashion, but bring in positive, impactful hangouts.
Yes.
Quite interesting. We're coming in back with Zilani Charlie.
Yeah.
Quite an interesting name. And we're going to find out if she can speak a bit of her mother tongue. You know, she didn't expect that. After a short breather, we can either speak it before or after the break. Which one do you think it's best? Because we actually have to test the litmus paper as far as culture is concerned. What do you think? Will you sing in your mother tongue?
I think I would like to practice.
Would give you time to practice until the next 30 minutes to break it.
Yes.
But there is also another very deep poem that I would love us to touch on. Is it okay? Because some of them are very, very deep. And we read one, Mind of a Slave, which she wrote at the age of 13. But in the next 2 minutes, I want to see, we've just laid to rest the monarch, the longest serving Queen Elizabeth.
Yes.
And Mind of a Slave, you do know that her death has also elicited some reactions as far as colonization was concerned.
Certainly,
so at 13, and you had such deep feelings, well, you are headed for some great stuff. Anarchy is something you wrote about.
Yes.
What would a young person, a teenager, think of anarchy?
So anarchy is something that when I was younger I viewed as only, disastrous, bad and everything. But relating it to the way that, the political sphere is conducted and how much corruption there is and there can be, I thought it was just important to criticize certain leaders at the time who...
13?
Yeah. Who were, spreading very discriminatory beliefs. And a lot of the poems in there are actually critical of leaders who use discriminatory beliefs to further their agendas. Because I think that inclusion is so important. And as a leader, if you're not including all of your people, then I don't think that makes you much of a leader.
Okay. You are 17. You turn 18 next year. I'm expecting you to vote. We thought teenagers were all about music and what's trending. But she wrote about anarchy, and it says no rules, no regulations, exactly how you like it. Exactly what you wanted. Apparently, you've made up some rules just to have something to show. I want to see expressions. This is your work.
Yes.
Just to have something to show, but don't you see that nobody actually cares? So lead well, my friend. You must mend your reputation now. It's anarchy, complete and utter madness. And these are your words at 13.
Yeah.
Okay. And there you stand in the eye of the hurricane, an expression of feigned shock on your generic bland face. We can all see the pleasure spilling from your ears as you raise your arms. It looks as though you are embracing the madness rather than chasing it away. So I'm going to come back with you. Let's talk a lot about our leaders in anarchy. You're saying we're seeing the madness. You need to lead well, my friend. I'll take a short breather. We'll be right back with more on what the teenager is actually doing to live and sustain themselves in a very hard time today.
Hi there, my name is George Washuri. I am so happy to see you, and today I am here to enumerate, to explain how we package our land investment. We have 5 levels of our property, and we classify these levels as 1 star, 2 stars, 3 star, 4 star, and 5 star. This is what we mean, that if you buy a property that is 1 star with Optiven, one of the things that is evident, the property is cheaper, is below $500,000. And this particular property is basically bare land. We only do subdivision, put the beacons, and then produce titles. The second level, we call it 2 star. This is prime land, whereby we grade the roads, we put a marking fence, do the beacons, and produce titles. The third level, we call it 3 stars. This 3 star is value added plots. We do the malam, we do the water, We do the mesh fence, and there's a caretaker on site. The fourth level is foster. Foster is ready to build development. We do very nice maram roads. We plant the trees. We put the water tower. We also put a caretaker on site. And finally, the 5-star. The 5-star is premier, is the top level. And this one, we do cable roads. We do water management through underground culverts. We do underground power. We do fountain for water. We do beautiful and nice permanent gates. We do perimeter wall and also do install the CCTV, and the whole property is manned by uniformed security. Some of these properties, these 5-star properties, we do a clubhouse and also construct swimming pool. Thank you once more for trusting Optiven. We value you. We are at Absa Plaza, 14th floor and 15th floor. God bless you.
Michezo na wachezaji, matukio na matokeo uwanjani. Tumejifunga kibwebwe kukuletea mbwembwe. Si mazungumzo ya kusisimua. Ndiyo maana safu ya spoti ipo hapa kwa ajili yako. ZFC! Nami hapa nahodha Robert Chacha, si suisui, na kuandalia kipindi bomba cha safu ya spoti kila siku ya Jumamosi kuanzia saa 7:30 hadi 9:30 ndani ya runinga nambari 1 ya michezo Lookup TV.
All right, welcome back. This is The Morning Drift, and every Tuesday our focus is in the inner you. All right, glowing from the inside out and growing also from the inside out. How is your mental health today as a young person? Are you able to then track your growth record? What are your dreams like? What are your challenges? How is your relationship with the world? Are you in touch with something you can do for therapy? But I hear young people saying, I'd rather hear from a younger person because they understand best my shoes than an older person who would judge me rather than understand. And that is why we have Zilani Chale, who is an author and an artist, and she does a lot more even this morning in inspiring young people her own way. She has said they most of the times felt she was awed, but she said out of that awed nature, she brought in some very powerful attributes of herself. And thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me.
I actually must say that you are soft-spoken in your own way, yeah? But you're able to still articulate these issues in a very powerful way. So that I must say, even on set, that I have appreciated. And I was going through the Oddball book, and the fact that you even went scientific into the, the planets, I think you're also really smart. But there is this you wrote about liberation, and someone once said that freedom is of the mind. So you're also a mental health advocate. When you were writing the poem, Liberation, where was the place that you were at like?
So I was also thinking a lot about racism and how that affects an individual's mental health and like the mental health of a community. Because, the Black Lives Matter riots were happening and everything. And it was so important for me to just put down on paper my immediate thoughts, because I knew that if I continued to think about it, it would just become a cycle of me thinking and worrying, and I needed to put it down in a way that would help others in expressing their feelings when they read it. So I wrote Liberation for that purpose. Did
you ever go through, racism? Because now I'm curious, most of this, slavery, colonization, reading from the books as well, but I'm curious because artists are very in touch with their souls. Is liberation anything you might have gone through?
So I have experienced bullying to a certain extent based on my ethnicity, because that's just common when you're experiencing life as a more reserved person and you're more quiet. And I'm from Kenya, I'm not from America or whatever, so I have experienced, unfortunately, that bullying based on ethnicity, and it's not been easy, but I overcame it by writing my feelings down and also talking to my mom and just explaining what happened. And yeah, she helps a lot in terms of saying, it's not your fault. You eat the food that you eat, and you have the culture that you have, and that's something to be proud of. And your family is proudly Kenyan, and that's something you should also take pride in.
And I like that for a moment there you brought in an aspect, maybe you do not know you're probably an actress. You were able to bring in a different voice that wasn't yours. But then what I'm seeing here is how it is very important to be able to speak it out. The people who cannot speak, you talking about being reserved, for example, introverts who say, and most parents we have spoken to whose children battling, depression and mental health, say one point in time, I found my boy hanging or not, lifeless, but they could not see a pattern because most reserved people and introverts don't get to talk how you talk with mama. And I'm looking at, what would you tell a teenager right now, who hasn't gotten the power yet to actually say, I'm being bullied or I'm being abused, and they're just quiet about it? How can they start? And maybe they are not writers, maybe they cannot write. Are there other ways you think they could communicate?
I would say that there's always a way out of however you're feeling. If you're feeling so low that you feel like you can't continue, there's always a way that you can find happiness and that you can find peace in whatever you're doing, be it film, because I know a lot of people are interested in film, music, acting. There's always, even in your academics, there's always a place that you can go that you're going to be accepted and that you're going to be heard and that you're not going to be alone.
There's always a place.
Always.
And you need to open yourself to the world, right? Somehow?
Absolutely.
Because that is how you get to another place. Speaking of, there's always a place to go to. There's been an aspect of young people no longer trust, because you don't know who's for you and who isn't. Yeah. And you don't know if they're going to judge or listen. But somehow I feel like you have, we are all learning. You have overcome bits of that. And I want to hear what you have to say about friendships. Do you have friends who are watching this movie? It's very difficult to see if introverts have friends, but if you do, you could please, say hi and let us know how you...
Hello.
You want to call them by name?
They're probably in school right now, but Ella, Chuan, Tay, Amara, and Ellie.
You could actually see the sisterhood of, you're saying their names, it changed a little bit. But friendships, why is it vital to have healthy friendships as a teenager where you're not afraid and you're not trying to just fit in the friendship crew? Yeah.
It's so important to have friends because they're the people who you can talk to about anything. Be it just casual chat or how you're feeling so deeply, or you can talk about your academics, your activities that you did over the weekend. They're your confidants, and it's so important to have them, even if it's just one.
Even if it's just one?
Absolutely.
It's difficult to choose a friend as a teenager. Everyone else looks cool or not. Yeah. I know, you're not very experienced, but you would tell me, or teenagers could be watching, but how do you know it's just time to drop this friend? Like, how do you know that it's not the right direction? Do you ask your parents? Do you just pretty much say, you know what, I don't like your values? How do you know it's healthy?
I would say if you step away from that friend, like if you're going to school, hanging out with that friend, and then you come home and you feel like something's just perpetually wrong. Like you don't feel as good about yourself. You're thinking negatively about like a certain aspect of yourself. Like, oh, Is the way I dress off? Is the way that I speak wrong? Because they might have made a comment on it. So go introspectively. Go within yourself and say, is this person really uplifting me? Are they supporting me?
Yeah.
Am I able to support them? Just think about how they make you feel and consider every aspect of your life if you're happy there, and how they're impacting your life.
And it's beautiful when you say, how am I supporting them? Because that's friendship.
Absolutely.
It's not take, right?
Yeah.
And so even as a friend, I'm looking at how do you be a good friend? Because teenagers and young people have said, you know what, even for counselors, and they'd rather open up to friends than even to their parents. And that's like a good check. But when you say support them, how do you support your friends and be a good friend from a good place?
So I think the conventional idea of supporting your friend is that you can like really talk to them and sit down and have the most heartfelt talks ever. But sometimes supporting your friend is as simple as giving them a note, saying how much you support them or how much you care about them, or like your favorite aspect about them. Say, I really like the way you do math and how confident you are in doing math. And that can really make their day. So little things really do add up.
Really little things do add up. They say the best things in life
Certainly.
are certainly free. And we thought perhaps that the young generation lost touch of the simplicity of life and got more into complex trends, etc. So it was quite, it's not really what we think. Not for all the young people.
Certainly not.
Wow, all right, that's quite a challenge. We're live on Facebook right now. Use the hashtag The Morning Drift. We will be wrapping this up in a few minutes. However, Charlie, you promised us that you might be, practicing something in your vernacular.
Oh. Yes.
Did we get in touch with that? Are you ready? Or do we do it at the end of the show?
Possibly at the end, so I have time to really think about a good message.
Oh, I like that. So when you talk about thinking about a good message, let's go into social media again. A good message.
A good message is to follow accounts and follow posts, like posts, interact with posts that make you feel good. It's all about you. Are
you sure?
Certainly, because when you're on your phone as an individual, maybe at like 12 in the morning, and you're just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and it's just all negativity. You see people with different bodies than you, and you're like, I want to look like them. You see people with different clothes than you, and you're like, I want those clothes. It gets difficult. And at the end of the day, it does have a very big impact on you as an individual. So the posts that you're consuming, make sure that they're about things that you enjoy, things that make you feel like happy, inspired. If you're into fashion, again, you can follow fashion accounts and just learn different techniques from them. If you're into music, you can look at different people who write music, perform music, sing, play.
But stay sane.
Yes.
No, I am going to have to put us on the spot. And on behalf of all parents, thank you very much for allowing me this moment. Your mom is here as well with all her consent.
Yes.
It's okay to get to watch what makes you feel good. I totally agree with you. First, love yourself, think about yourself. You're a priority, you deserve it all. But there is something about criticism and critic and correction, and it's always going to come.
It is.
We get it at our age. But it's a bit difficult then on how the young people receive criticism and critics, or just not understanding what makes them happy is actually what they want to do. How do you handle all this? Because it's not every day you're right?
That's true.
But how then do you think it's best to receive these changes and discipline, disciplinarian kind of approaches to you from your parents and community? Yeah? How do you think is the best way to deal with these things?
So, I don't know if this is really helpful to other people.
Yes.
But a quote that I heard that I really keep in mind as I'm going through my day is what other people think of me is none of my business. I don't really need to know if, you know, like if you think I dress funny, then that's okay, because this is the way that I dress. You know, it's about how you view yourself, and if the things that you're doing are making you happy and are inspiring you and making you feel good, then, and if they're not hurting anybody, then there's no reason at all why, you know, somebody else's judgment or critique should, you know, really affect you that way. But if you are being affected by critiques, because I know it's not always easy to just say, it's fine.
Yes.
It comes back to those support systems that are really important. And, you know, you can confide in people and say that this is really affecting me and I don't really know what to do about it, how to navigate it, and they can really help you.
At the end of the day, talk to somebody if it's really getting to you. You wrote something beautiful to your grandparents.
I did, yeah.
I'm assuming they are part of the support system?
Certainly.
What did you write to your grandparents? Why did you write it?
So my grandparents, most of them, worked in a creative field. One of my grandmothers was actually a writer.
Beautiful.
Yes, and my grandpa was an architect. And on my other side, on my mom's side, my grandmother is a entrepreneur. She worked in a lot of different fields, but she's an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And my grandfather was a magistrate.
Oh, beautiful.
So I draw a lot of inspiration from them, from my creative grandparents. Obviously, I draw inspiration from like their spirit to be inspired to write and just build and create. And from my entrepreneurial grandmother and from my magistrate grandfather, I draw inspiration from in my academics, and also just I draw strength from them, because it's so important to keep them in mind and just see how much they've shaped my life. Yeah.
I like that. And I'm really, really proud of you. I like that you're saying, there's something about looking back and appreciating where you have come from.
Certainly.
And I like that you're saying, I draw my inspiration and my strength. What else inspires you besides the amazing family line that you have just given me? There has to be something that you're looking forward to. There's someone you're going to become. Am I looking at the nice Condoleezza Rice?
I love that. So definitely reading inspires me a lot. Literature as a whole. I think it's so important if you write to also read and be able to learn from different authors, because there's so much literature out there. Like, it is so inspiring to think that I might go out into the world and find like a billion other libraries to explore. So definitely my main inspiration is literature and reading. I've always loved it, and it's always been a source of just comfort for me.
And talking of a source of comfort, let's go back. You said, of course, fashion is good, music. There's always somewhere where someone can go and release the extra energy that they get to interact with day in, day out. Relationships. And Mom, can we talk about this? You know, it's not, we're not running away from this. And let me tell you, the government is concerned about the young people in this country right now. Just in the dailies this morning, we saw the Children's Act, you know, pushing for it. They want better protection and the rights of children. Different concepts of what age do we get to talk about certain issues with you guys, you know, the teenagers. And I just want to hear your thoughts really on, you know, teenage pregnancies. You're a young girl. But they're pushed to these things for a reason. Perhaps we need to hear from a young person today, despite bringing all the interventions. What do you think is really going on? And from where you sit, and you have a beautiful view of the world.
Thank you.
What are you seeing as far as all these issues that are hitting young people in terms of relationships, you know, early motherhood, and etc. are concerned?
I think that a lot of teenage pregnancies stem from dependency.
Okay.
So when, you know, you're a young girl, there's so much pressure from a million different sources, you know, society, maybe your parents, school. There's a lot of pressure to just be a lot of different things. And I think that when young girls get into relationships, they find a source of comfort in the person that they're with.
Okay.
And perhaps their judgment could be a bit clouded. And you know, there's often like the guiding figures are not confided in their life because they find it difficult to voice their struggles that they're facing. And so obviously teenage pregnancies are the result of that. Of course, you know, it's important to help these young mothers and to understand where they're coming from. And I actually have a small project where I deliver supplies to these young mothers for their babies and also to consider their education, because it's difficult to be a young mother and to also, you know, go into education and continue your high school experience. So I think it's so important to support these young mothers because, sure, they're young mothers and the choices that they have made and, you know, the situations that they've been through are not easy. So it's very important to support them and show them that it's okay. You know, the past is the
you did
past.
what you knew best with what you knew then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of approach. And we're so glad you unveiled that project to us.
Thank you. Yeah.
Might you need support with it? You will tell us later.
Absolutely, I will.
All right, but I think it's
and
really good at your age, 17, and you are standing with these young mothers. Do you speak with them?
I do. I try to. And a lot of the proceeds from Oddball are actually going to go towards supporting this project and kind of furthering it so that it can continue. Even when I go to university, I want it to continue and I want it to be something that people see as important because it's these young mothers, they need support. They cannot be overlooked in society because they're so intelligent, they're so talented, and it's not fair on them just because they've had a child for that to be their life, for them just to be a mother. Because they're their own person, they're so much more.
This was really deep. You said they're just not mothers, they're their own person. I only have 5 minutes to wrap this up, and I have already learned so much. And they usually say maturity sometimes, it's not all about age. You're very deep in your own way, your own person. You could be an oddball watching this morning, and what I'm drawing so much is how unique you are, and once you just accept that, then so much will be happening in your life. She is actually a testimony of this. And before I wrap this up, I really want to hear what's going down in October. Because this doesn't end here. This is your first book, but there's more to come. Please bring us up to speed. How do young people say that? Fill me in, or how do you?
Yes, bring us up to speed.
Okay, bring me up to speed. Bring us up to speed on the project going down in October.
So in October, I'm launching Oddball, actually. So it will be available in bookstores and on Amazon as well as an ebook. And the launch will be happening on October 22nd at Alliance Française. So please feel free to stop by and say hello, because I would love to see you there. Yes, and also I have my social media, my YouTube channel as well, all under my name, Zilani Chale. And yeah.
And by the way, it's Charlie. I know all those who wanted to pronounce it how they want to. And that's quite a number of things you're doing there, of course, the support of your family. When I look at you, I've seen you in all the best ways, 13, 14, 17 now. And I keep asking this every day. What's the future like for the teenager in this country today? In just 1 minute, in your own way, poetically, what's the future like for the teenager?
There is so much potential within our youth in Kenya, especially. And I think that it's so important that it does not just rest on academics, that it rests on natural talents or interests or just general hobbies. It's so important to harness and fuel and support the creativity that's brewing in this generation. And that's how we're going to have a strong youth. We're going to have mentally strong youth as well if we support them in terms of creativity.
Okay, mentally strong. I take that home. Thank you, Nzilani Charlie, for creating time.
Absolutely.
You also look very beautiful.
Thank you. You do
Keep at
too.
it. Thank you. We hope to have you again very soon.
Absolutely. I'd love to be back.
And that is it for Look Up TV Morning Drift this very hour. My name is Ankey Dorice, and I don't want to dilute anything for that matter. If you missed the beginning, we still have this uploaded on YouTube. Grab a copy of Oddballs once it's launched in October. And don't forget, in everything you do, you're odd because you're unique. And the best thing you can do for yourself is you can communicate and stay mentally strong. Until tomorrow, same place, same time, Simba Elijah Charles Kiage is coming in with Look at Business. And we all do want to know what's going on in the world of business, don't we? Enjoy the rest of your viewing. Good morning.